Hi, my name is Hala Al-Dusri, and I'm here to give a statement on the situation of human rights defenders in Saudi Arabia. In the last few years, the increased targeting of human rights defenders in Saudi Arabia has raised a lot of concerns. The aggression was made possible because of the severely restricted civil and political rights in Saudi Arabia, establishing a civil society organizations and the right to assembly, formation of political parties, or expression of critical political or religious views is punishable by law. According to the basic law of governance, the king holds absolute power over the legislative, executive, and the legal arms of the government. There is no written penal code, and the religiously educated judges enjoy vast authority to quote references from the Islamic Sharia without a standard framework to ensure that human rights are protected and respected. Recently, laws and legislation have been enacted to warrant more discretionary power to the Minister of Interior, who is also been recently nominated as the Crown Prince. In particular, the anti-terror law passed on December 2013 has raised the concerns for its lack of guarantees of due process, as well as the vast powers awarded to the minister. Articles 4, 7, and 24 of the law give the Minister of Interior an unchallenged authority to hold and prosecute or release any citizen without any definitive safeguards against the abuse of power. Human rights defenders are deeply affected by this law, as it defines acts of peaceful advocacy for human rights as acts of terror. Examples of some of the charges directed to prominent human rights defenders are defaming the country's reputation for highlighting the human rights violation, threatening national unity for criticizing ill public policies or authority figures, destabilizing the state for promoting contradictory views to that of the state, and obstructing the process of development for questioning corruption. In addition, the online space is a hunting ground for those with critical views. Article 6 of the Anti-Cyber Crimes Law have been coded in charges against online activists, imposing a penalty of 5 years and a fine of no more than 3 million Saudi riyals for online activities deemed infringing on public order, religious values, public morals, and privacy. Such vague terms have been used not only to target the human rights defenders in Saudi, but also everyday citizens for their controversial religious or political opinions. In result, physicians, professional journalists, bloggers, and writers, as well as everyday individuals, are being prosecuted. Recent examples are the unlawful detention of Dr. Bandar Qadir for posting a tweet on Syria, and he's the director of a Mecca hospital. Ala Brinji, the journalist, for establishing a Facebook page critical of the extreme religious fatwas. Dr. Gchr Qutbi for his political views, and the situation is really a serious one, considering the dramatic gap between the human rights standards and the prevailing norms and practices in Saudi Arabia, making the role of the human rights defenders a crucial one. Yet, the activists have been legally punished, harassed, defamed, or threatened for a variety of activities aimed to promote human rights, such as for establishing an online civil society organization, demanding the right for due process for prisoners of conscience, demanding to lift the restrictions on women driving, signing up petitions for political or civil or economic reforms, organizing neighborhood watch for areas at risk for sectarian violence, as what happens recently with members of youth squad who were sentenced for trying to protect citizens, engaging in activities to promote women's participation in municipal elections. Those activities have been stopped by the Ministry of Interior, communicating public concerns to foreign or local media, supporting victims of domestic violence, protesting or posting online clips or comments which show dissent, among many other actions. Once imprisoned, the poor conditions of detention centers, prisons, and correctional facilities threaten the health and well-being of the human rights defenders. In situations where a defender is finally released, his or her release is always a conditional one. It is usually bound by accompanying disciplinary measures, including travel bans, a pledge to refrain from resuming any human rights activities, and suspension of teaching for professors in academia. The state actions drain the limited pool of human rights defenders in Saudi and send a warning message for those who are pursuing such activities. Released human rights defenders have to endure a strict state surveillance for activities that are not without any clear directives to when or where those surveillance or the travel bans or the ban on teaching is going to be lifted. For those who are concerned about the defenders and trying to get the information on their cases, information is extremely difficult to obtain. Human rights defenders are often warned by the state officials not to divulge anything about their arrest, including intimidating their own family members. It's a well-recognized fact that the transition to democracy and sustainable development can never be achieved without a framework protecting the human rights. In particular, the role of human rights defender is necessary in times where violent gender or religious discrimination prevail. Meanwhile, prominent human rights defenders in Saudi continue to spend lengthy terms in prison or face serious legal intimidation. In 2013, during the second periodic review of Saudi Arabia and the Human Rights Council, several recommendations were made by other states and countries and accepted by the Saudi state. They included strengthening the legal and institutional basis for protection of human rights, promoting public awareness of human rights, reforming the legal system to match the state's commitment, ensuring the due process and the guarantees of justice in laws and legislations, enacting a legislation for a civil society organization, enabling human rights defenders to carry out their duties independently and safely, ensuring that the legal system will not be used against individuals for expressing controversial political or religious views, and enabling licensure for civil society organizations to build the capacity of their members and to carry their duties. Needless to say that none of these accepted states' recommendations have been acted upon by the Saudi government to date. So I'm now urging the international community, the authorities of Saudi Arabia and the concerned parties to immediately free and to pressure for immediately freeing and stopping the prosecution of our human rights defenders, those members, the founding members of the Association for Civil and Political Rights who have tried relentlessly to enforce the rule of due process, the rule of law, independent law and due process. Walid Abu Khair, Dr. Zuhair Qutbi, and all of the unlawfully detained citizens. I'm also urging them to stop the imposed travel bans on several activists such as Maysa Al-Amoudi, Lujain Al-Hadloul, who had to quit their jobs and lost their cars and belongings and still not sure when the travel ban would be lifted, and many others for their peaceful support for human rights and empowering their citizens. And finally, I do thank the Gulf Center for Human Rights, the distinguished panelists and the audience for giving me this opportunity to speak on the situation of human rights defenders in Saudi Arabia. And thank you all.